It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show! Hey everybody, it's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey gang.
And Les Webster.
Hello all.
How are you guys doing?
We're rolling.
Good, pretty good.
Yeah, we're rolling now.
Shh. You don't have to tell them. You don't have to tell the listeners that. Jeez.
It just ended up on the outtakes. So.
Oh, yeah. Outtakes. That'll be the day.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, that. You save all that stuff, and someone else could put it together. There you go. Just not you.
I'm good with that idea.
Maybe it would be best if it was a third party. I don't know.
Oh, probably. I'm sure I'm biased.
All right. I hope everybody out there has been doing okay. So what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Well, since I don't have any trades right now to read, I've been reading like real books for a change, which is kind of a nice change because I used to do that a lot. But then comics took over my life, but in a good way. But anyway, the book I just actually finished today was a book called The QI Third Book of General Ignorance. And if you know anything about QI, it is a British TV, and I've talked about it before, it's a British TV show, and it's sort of a faux quiz show, which basically talks about trivia and minutia. Random facts. And so, obviously, they've got a successful book series going because there's at least 3. And there are actually more than that. There are several more than that. But I happened to pick up on my Kindle the third book of General Ignorance. And I just finished it today. And it's the kind of thing it's really fun to geek out about a little bit. Because it's like random crap. And mostly the format for this book was basically trick questions. So simple stuff. It would ask a simple question that everybody knows the answer to, and the problem is that the answer that everybody knows is wrong. And so then they fill you in on the details and kind of wander off on tangents a little bit.
Hey, kind of like we do.
Kind of, yeah. And actually, the funny thing is they actually have kind of an offshoot podcast called No Such Thing as a Fish. So check that out if you like. I listen to it religiously. It is very much fun.
Cool. How about you, Les?
Well, I went to see the new Batman animated film, Batman and Harley Quinn.
Ooh. And?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was well paced. It was definitely well written. We had a different voice for Harley. We also did a couple things that have not appeared in a Batman animated movie or TV series. And this was reminiscent of the Batman animated show. You had people being killed, and you had cursing.
Oh, wow.
Damn.
So a grown-up version of TAS.
Yes. There was a sex scene involved, although nothing was shown.
Wow.
It was one of those, hi, how are you? And then the two of them sitting on the edge of the bed smoking cigarettes type situation. Nothing graphic.
I'll wait for the DVD version.
Oh, yes, which comes out in about 2 weeks.
Right. It's
What?
not like you have to wait a long time.
Right.
Yeah. So
But I really liked it. I thought it was well done. It was a good pace. I didn't start to look around the theater to see what else was going on. I didn't nod off. So I recommend it. I think it's a pretty good program to see.
Interesting. Because, granted, it's the internet, but from the responses I've been seeing from some of the people, it's totally opposite of what you were saying.
Really?
Yeah. They didn't like the pacing. They didn't like the writing. They don't like the voice of Harley. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, it's not Tara, whatever.
It was Melissa Rauch from Big Bang Theory. And I thought she did okay.
I could see her doing good at that. Yeah.
It was real heavy into New York City, and I didn't have a problem with it.
Well, that's how it was back in the animated series.
Yes, and you look at Suicide Squad, the accent was really rare. There were some scenes where Margot Robbie would lay it on thick, and other times you're just smooth sailing through it. She's from California or something.
Well, I mean, considering
she's Australian.
Well, yeah. Well, but I was going to say the whole thing about the New York accent, considering that Metropolis is supposed to be based off of New York, and Gotham is supposed to be based off of New Jersey. It would kind of make sense that would be that kind of an accent. But hey, what do I know? Well, I definitely would like to check it out. See how it is. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm sure there was people out there that enjoyed it as well.
Sure.
Just not the people that apparently I'm Facebook friends with.
not always some of the local ones.
Yeah. It was my turn to have a big bag of nothing. Just a couple life situations, and then I don't know. It was kind of a week where I did not want to do anything, just veg. So, and we all have those type of weeks. So,
yeah, I remember those type of weeks. It was nice.
I take more of those than my share. So.
Yeah, well, there's a reason for that.
Alrighty. Before we get into this week's topic, I want to take a couple moments to thank our sponsors for their support. First off, I want to thank Peter Smetty of Alterna Comics, and also the creator of the Make Mine Indie, the digital catalog for print, digital, and web comics. The summer catalog is available. If you go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and click on our sponsors page, you'll see the logo for Make Mine Indie and a link where you can download the current catalog, either as a CBZ file or a PDF file, and that's free. It's 147 pages filled with previews, reviews, interviews, a lot of cool stuff. There's titles that Mikey and I have been fortunate enough to check out and review on the website. But then there's some that we would definitely love to get our hands on to check it out. And I'm sure y'all find something out there that's right down your alley. So we thank Peter and them for their support. I also like to thank Things from Another World for being a sponsor of the Fellowship. A lot of cool deals going on right now. One that's good through the end of the month is save 30% off 50 hot comics and trades. In addition to their evergreen deals, such as 40% off comics, statues, toys, and merchandise. 30% off pre-order manga titles, 50% off Nick and Dent comics and trades, and up to 70% off certain comics, graphic novels, collectibles, and more. So while you're on our sponsors page, if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see information for Things from Another World and links that you can click on. They'll take you to their website and lets them know that we sent you their way. It would be much appreciated, and just, hey, take advantage of these great deals. Alrighty. For this week, it's going to be an interesting discussion. This was brought to my attention a little over a week ago. This is essentially an opinion piece, although it's not really mentioned that it is.
Don't steal our thunder now, man. Jeez.
But still, and we'll have the link in the show notes. The website's kingdominsider.com. But the headline of the article is, "Will Disney Stop Publishing Marvel Comic Books?" And not necessarily something that hasn't been tossed around. I've seen some discussion on this in some social media comment sections, namely Facebook, and some of the other postings for anything related to Marvel. But essentially, the article, which was written by Tom Pratt, talks about the current state of the comic industry and the fact that, Marvel is being run by Disney and throwing up the possibility of them stop doing the comics because it's not as profitable as doing movies and TV shows, and that they would treat the Marvel characters and stuff as essentially intellectual property. So that's pretty much the gist of the article, unless I missed something. But I kind of threw this at the guys and said, "Hey, check this out, and what do you think?" And figure we might have a little discussion about that. So I'm opening the floor to anybody.
Okay, so there's my take on this article, just as an article in general, is that there are kind of two ways to look at it. The fun way is to kind of run with the ideas and essentially decide for ourselves if any of this crap makes sense. The other way is kind of the boring, pedantic way, which is to criticize the article for not really having a whole lot of detail.
Right.
Which is where you got the opinion concept from, I think. He states some interesting ideas based on not any. He's not really presenting any backing for these ideas.
Yeah, there's really no facts other than the fact that hey, the numbers are down essentially for comic sales, and the numbers are way up for movies. That's more or less it.
Right, and if that's all he's basing it on, then it's not much.
Right.
But my thing with this article is that there are there's some interesting conjecture to be had there, I think. For example, the idea that maybe comics, in terms of the standard 24-page floppies, or however many pages floppies are these days, it varies, but maybe they're not the best way to present the material anymore. Maybe it has finally, the price of an individual book has priced itself out of its own market. That, to me, is an interesting idea.
And that's something we kind of touched on a previous podcast too, about the form of the comic itself.
Right. We have dabbled in that realm a bit. Making the leap to Disney shutting down Marvel from that is probably a little dramatic.
So you're basically saying clickbait?
Not entirely. I mean, like I said, there's some.
There's worse clickbaits than this.
Oh, entirely, totally. This is. based on someone's opinion. And there's honestly, I don't think anything really wrong with that. He doesn't really try to sell this as factual stuff.
Right, that this is actually going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's not what he's saying. I mean, he's saying he thinks it's going to happen. And at least that's how I read it. And so that makes it fine, as long as we don't get too crazy with it.
Well, and another portion of his evidence is he mentions the fact that Archie Comics is doing digest versions of Marvel material. The fact that IDW is about to come out with an all ages Star Wars book, but that's not the only Star Wars product that's not being done by Marvel. I mean, by someone other than Marvel. Les and I have had this talk when we first kind of mentioned this whole thing before, is the fact that IDW also does Disney comics. They're publishing Disney comics. Now, granted, these are reprints of stories that originally appeared in Europe several years ago. I mean, so it's the first time it's hitting here in the U.S., but still, it's Disney IP that's being produced by another company. So, I mean, I think that's kind of another of what he's trying to say. Well, look, see what they're doing now, and
Yeah, IDW is doing the Disney comics, and it states that Disney has gone to other people, like you stated. But I had a bit of a problem when he was talking about the big two and stating that they are owned by large corporations. They are. I will admit that. Marvel is owned by Disney. DC is owned by Time Warner. But he made a statement that really stuck in my craw. And that is that they did it for the profits. To me, Disney did buy Marvel, and it was going to be a source for TV, movie, and gaming ventures. When Time Warner purchased DC, how many decades ago? 2 decades?
Late 60s, early 70s, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so you're looking at 4 decades. The difference was they weren't doing it for a place to pull stories for movies or television. They had already established themselves in television with several shows. I've been on a rant before where Marvel takes a story from some of their issues and says, okay, this will make a great movie. And to me, DC stays away from that a lot more. They did Batman versus Superman, which was nothing that you found in DC comics. The new movie I just spoke of, the Batman Harley Quinn, is not one that was in comics. They were able, DC has been able to move without that crutch, and I commend them for it.
Okay.
That's where
in fairness, being devil's advocate, I just watched the animated Killing Joke here a few weeks back, and they during San Diego they announced they're doing a 2 animated movie deal, which is doing a proper version of The Death of Superman and The Reign of Superman. So I see what you're saying, but I'm gonna say I think both of them kind of go somewhat original, or they borrow story elements from other stories, or for some of the comics, and then some of them it's just a literal, just a live action version. So I'm just trying to be devil's advocate there.
Well, and I think a lot of people would also argue that DC's distancing themselves from their own stories has been more detrimental than anything else. I mean, I think people would rather them mind the back catalog for stories rather than do stuff like Batman v Superman, which honestly, from what I heard, was cobbled together from 3 different existing stories anyway. But it was done so haphazardly that nobody liked it. So you commend them for it, but the other thing to keep in mind is that they're not really raking in a whole lot of dough from the movies they are making. So how do they? I mean, how do you think they're going to fix that? And this, I admit that feel free to ignore that question because it runs us off on a tangent.
I will agree. It does send us a different direction. I'm thinking back, I know that the Laughing Fish was an episode on the Batman animated TV series. And there are stories, I'll be one of the first to say there are stories that DC has done that I would love to have as a movie or an animated feature of some sort. But to me, they were more successful obviously in the animated because they did not rely on their backlog of issues. Batman animated series stood by itself and was new stuff every episode, except like the Laughing Fish. But that was the one that they really couldn't walk away from. That was one of the most noted. And yes, they did the Killing Joke. But
And that was recent too, so.
Yeah. But let's go back to the idea of comics themselves. This guy, the writer of this article, did not pose any solutions. And it bothers me like watching one of the reality television programs where the lead is searching for something and he may come across something that resembles what he's searching for, but it's never confirmed. And it's one of those, well, we looked and we can't say that we found it, so we'll have to keep looking. Well, whoever you are employing to look for it is going to keep looking. You're going to move on to do something else. And I really have a problem with that idea.
Isn't that generally the way all of the Ghost Hunter TV shows worked out?
Exactly. Yes. I do recall a couple of instances on Ghost Hunters itself where something happened, and it was pretty startling.
But see, that's what's funny about those shows is you spend an entire season waiting for something to happen, and then and you get so used to it not happening that when it happens, it's weird.
Yes.
Anyway, another tangent. Sorry.
Well, but that's what I'm getting at is this writer is not resolving anything. He's just saying, well, that's what it looks like. Well, you haven't told me exactly what has concrete evidence for it. And if you don't resolve it, then, or if you don't even give an idea of how to resolve it, then it's pure conjecture. And that just cheeses me right there.
See, my take on it was that his resolution was the death of the comic book. It seemed that that was almost what he was suggesting was that they just stop printing them just stop now. That was kind of the feeling I got from it. It's like it's going to happen eventually anyway. why not just quit? You're already selling bajillions of dollars worth of movie tickets. Why keep doing it? And I don't know that he actually ever really overtly said that, but that was the feeling I got from it.
Well,
Which is not a solution you want to hear. I understand. I don't really want to either, but
are we saying that it's all digital? That print is not going to be available?
I think he mentioned that possibility at one point.
Oh,
That
and
between digital comics and movies, both animated and live action, I think that's kind of where he said it was going to go. I don't know how wrong he is, really.
okay, then let's go to the question of, is Disney going to stop the presses? Are they going to farm it out to let Marvel get its quotas? Or is it going to just fade away?
I think that's a trickier question than something like this article can answer, because I think a lot of the answer to that really is financial in nature. Um, and we may have even mentioned this before at one point on an earlier show. Um, how small a print run do you have to get before you have to price the book so high that you can't sell it? And I think Disney's answer to that question is a lot higher. Or I think the number of the size of a print run for Disney is going to be a lot higher than it might be for either a publisher who's used to smaller print runs, or someone who is doing it for the love of the game. Because for Disney, I mean, they've got the IP, they own that, they can do what they want with it. But they're in the business to make money, and so if it costs too much to print comics, if the margins are not high enough, I could see them stopping. I could see them trying to figure out a way to shift it all to digital. They've already got a digital comic service. They've already got the infrastructure for it. They could switch it over and not lower the prices and actually turn a profit, because they're not having to fight with printing.
Unless they want to do it as a collection, which is a possibility.
In which case, they can hand it off to an IDW, who
Mm-hmm.
they print collections like that all the time, or Archie, they print those digests all the time. They're
Right.
already set up for it. They've got the infrastructure for that. They can do it a little bit cheaper, and therefore it makes more sense. Especially if there are people like Les out there who they want the physical book. If there's only one place they can get it, and that's Archie Comics, then that's where he'll go, because they have what he wants. And so they're still, in that way, they're still covering the market base of what is effectively the dwindling comic book consumer, and they're not incurring a whole lot of extra cost doing it. And they've still got access to all of those writers and artists that they can casually, well, one, keep working on the digital books, and two, they can casually shift over to the animation department. Because people don't forget, Disney still has a pretty good chunk of the animation work that's going on out there.
Yeah, between it and Taco Bueno. Well, no, I'm sorry, it was Taco Bell, wasn't it? That won the food wars.
Wow. Is that a reference to Demolition Man?
Yes, it is.
Wow. I
Jeez.
am impressed, sir. I haven't seen that movie in a long time, for a good reason. But anyway. No, I like that movie. It's old, but I liked it. Early Wesley Snipes.
Mm-hmm.
Fun stuff.
Pre-tax Wesley
Yeah,
Snipes.
pre-tax evasion Wesley Snipes.
Wow.
Yep, back in the Major League days.
Well, what'd you take from it, Thomas?
I'm not sure. I could definitely see them farm it off to the degree because they're already doing it to a certain point, and unless we've kind of had that discussion before because I've remarked at how IDW is putting out these books that prominently feature characters that are either DC or Marvel, and I'm like, why aren't they doing this? Well, the obvious reason is, all they have to do is just say, okay, you want to do this? This is fine. This is how much it's going to take to let you do that, and and then whatever cut they're going to get. So I mean, yeah, they don't have to do the work, and they still get revenue. So I could definitely see farming it off, but I don't. I can see it as a possibility, but I still think that the Marvel comics will survive. I think it'll still keep on going. I know there's a lot of questions regarding Marvel, and a lot of concerns and a lot of anger going on concerning its direction. But I just can't see them giving up, just not doing comics anymore. But hey, I've been wrong before. I think things are gonna depend on what happens the next 6 to 8 months regarding the whole legacy with the one shot and the renumbering, going back to original numbering, and supposedly a new attitude. We've had these conversations off record, but there's not a lot of excitement for these books, and I assume Marvel is hearing this, and if they are, they got to be concerned. They got to be concerned that the retailers are going, our subscribers are not interested. They're not signing up for these books. They don't like what's going on. I think I pointed out to you, Les, when DC first announced Rebirth, there was a buzz. It wasn't generated by us as retailers. To a degree, it was generated by DC, but we had people coming in going, what is this Rebirth about? And, this sounds like it's going to be pretty cool. Sign me up for this. We're not getting that with Legacy. We're not getting that with Marvel's Legacy. Some people feel that it's an event. Some people think it's going to be just, this is something they're trying to do, and then, it'll last a year or so, and then it's over and they'll do something else. And it's not helping that some of the marketing they're putting out is every book, every series is an event in itself. I'm like, guys, you got to get Marvel an event out of the same sentence, because people are burned out on events. So
that, and every title being an event itself, that's what a title is.
True.
I mean, you're basically not helping by saying that. You're saying this is the same thing you always want. This is the same thing you get every month anyway. Well, you're not really going to sell something new by claiming it's the same thing.
It's amazing, and I'm going to say this up front. I want Marvel to do well. It helps us as retailers, and it helps the creators that are putting out the book if they do well. And I love the characters. As I've mentioned in other podcasts, I grew up reading both. So there's characters from both that I love and care about. But it seems to me, one of the things I've always complained, especially the last few years, it seems like all they do is it's marketing and pushing and selling and this kind of stuff. And it seems like all of a sudden they don't know how to do this. They can't sell legacy. And I'm like, this is the most crucial time for you. And it seems like y'all just don't know what's going on. And that can't help things.
Would it be crazy to suggest that maybe they never knew really how to do it?
Yeah, it could be.
Maybe they were sort of skating by. I mean, maybe at first the novelty of the event sold the event, and as you said, the novelty is wearing off now, and people are like, I don't want to buy all these extra books.
Right.
So, but they're still kind of relying on the novelty of the event to sell the event, but it's back. The sewer's backing up on them at this point because nobody wants it.
Yeah.
And so it's not going to sell itself.
Now, I'm sure there's people out there that are listening to our conversation and it will point out the numbers that you see every month going, well, look, Marvel had the top 10 titles or top 5 or 6 titles for that month. That's true. Here's the thing, as we've talked about on several different shows, those numbers are not what you, the reader, are buying. That is what the retailers are buying to sell to you. And with Marvel's variant policy, in a lot of cases, some of the variances, you have to order either a percentage of the regular book to be able to order those variants, or it's a 1 in 25, 1 in 50, 1 in 100, that kind of thing. So, yeah, that's going to pump up the numbers because there's going to be retailers out there, some retailers, that are going to go, yeah, I'll do that so I can get that particular variant and sell the other books online or whatever. So that inflates the numbers. So I'm going by what I'm reading from other stores. And I think I've said this before, as being part of retailers, I'm part of a couple of groups, Facebook groups of retailers. So I'm seeing what's going on in their stores. And it's the same thing with us. We've had a lot of people drop Marvel titles. They're not interested. They don't like what's going on. It's just, Marvel has to do something. So I'm sorry for the rant, but I'm just trying to. I think this is definitely a crucial time for them. They got to get it. They got at least that's the way I feel. They got to figure it out. Otherwise, who knows what's going to happen.
Well, and you can be forgiven for ranting a bit because you've kind of, in your own way, got a double stake in this. Because you're not only a fan, but you are one of those retailers,
right?
That he mentions in this article. And unfortunately, what he's talking about is one of the things that would happen if all the publishers stopped printing books is there wouldn't be a retail market anymore.
Right.
And so all of those specialty comic book shops that they've been so careful to cultivate, I guess, I don't know how careful they've been at it really, but they've cultivated it mainly by making it difficult to get hold of the books otherwise, it's just going to go away.
Yeah.
And my guess is there are already individual retailers going away probably every day just because it's such a hard business to be in because the margins are so tight, and like you said, there are weird requirements for buying things that you're not sure you can sell. And yes, all those sales numbers are based on what retailers buy. But the other thing to keep in mind is that the totals, I mean, what order they come in is all well and good. If Marvel's got 6 of the top 10 books, great. But if the total number of comics is shrinking, then that's where your problem really is. It doesn't matter who's the highest guy.
Right.
It doesn't matter who's tallest on the sinking ship. Everybody's going down.
Right.
So there's going to be a shift at some point in the industry, and the question is going to be, where does it go? And I think that's the part. I mean, I think that's kind of what this article really is this guy's thinking about where it might all end up. Where are all these characters that so many people love going to be in 5 years or 10 years or however long it takes? And I think he's just kind of at the beginning of starting to think about, well, how do we want this to turn out?
Right.
Can we breach the subject about programs going on television or into media other than movies? I'm specifically talking about programs on Netflix and Amazon, things like that. Is that something for another time, or?
No, bring it on.
Well, you've already mentioned it, so go ahead.
I just said can we?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I think honestly, that's actually a really good jumping point to that. So go for it.
Okay, well, I'm going to be stupid about this. I'm just going to say I have heard, and I'm sorry to throw you under the bus, Thomas, but I'm going to ask you to speak on it because you know a lot more about it than I do.
Okay. What do you want me to speak about?
I would like for you to speak about the fact that Marvel is trying to set up its own website or channel to carry its own goods.
Streaming service?
Okay, you're talking about Disney doing its own streaming service.
Yes.
That is true. But from what I have heard, I have not really gone into to look into it in too much detail. It's supposedly geared toward Disney Pixar stuff, so from what I understand, it's not really going to affect the Marvel and Star Wars content.
For now.
So for now, we'll see what happens after 2019, which is when Disney's streaming service goes online, and when the agreement with Netflix is over with. So yeah, the Defenders, all the other Marvel shows that are on Netflix, they're still going to be on Netflix for the foreseeable future. What happens in 2019, 2020? Like I said, I've not read more into it. I guess I'm going to need to, but I don't even think they know right now. That may be something that's discussed down the road, but as far as but some of the Disney shows and movies that are gone off Netflix. But, we kind of talked about it before. There's other, DC setting up its own streaming service. Young Justice Season 3 is only going to be on their streaming service. The new live-action Titans show, only going to be on the DC service, too. We've talked about before of CBS, doing the new Star Trek show. Other than the pilot. I think the pilot's supposed to be on regular broadcasting, but everything else will be on streaming.
Yeah.
That seems to be the way that a lot of them are going. Now, that being said, it's going to be interesting to see where all that goes, because it sounds really cool and all that, but and you think, well, I can get rid of cable or dish, and I've got 500 channels, and I only watch 30 of them. But if you're signing up for 24 streaming services at $8 a piece, are you really saving any money? It's going to be interesting to see what happens, because now everybody's going to have, all these studios are going to start thinking, hey, they're doing that. That sounds awesome. We've got a great catalog of programming, whether it's movies or a TV or a combination. Let's do that. I think there's going to be a lot of them that are going to do that, and all of a sudden, that's a whole new. I don't even know what you want to call it.
You think that it's going to be a glut of it then?
Oh God, yeah.
I can see it's just going to be so swamped.
I still think Netflix is still going to be around because they're doing original content, especially now that they've signed on Millar World to do shows. Which after when that was announced, I thought that was interesting, and then the next day was the whole thing about Disney pulling Netflix, and I'm thinking, the timing is rather interesting about all this. Like, they were planning for this to happen. So, but yeah, I don't see Netflix going away, but I could see some of the other ones maybe going away, and because all the major networks in even ESPN has streaming, and some of the other networks have streaming, or at least on demand. That's kind of the same thing.
Well, and it was the premium channels that kind of got that whole ball rolling.
Right.
Because, they're the ones charging extra on top of your cable 30 years ago.
Right.
You want HBO, you got to pay, not only do you have to have cable, then you got to pay an extra $10 a month.
Right.
For HBO. And so, that's the paradigm right there. And that's where they all want to go, because they can all make $10 a month instead of whatever they're making now.
Right.
What they're not realizing is that not everybody's going to pay everybody $10 a month.
Right.
So people are going to pick and choose, and you're going to find a lot of these streaming services disappearing after the second year.
Right.
And two, you're going to find the price ranges changing drastically pretty quickly, because people aren't going to pay $10 a month. They might pay $4, but they're not going to pay 10, because that's a lot. And
right.
They're only getting a handful of shows out of the bargain. At that point, you're going to get back to people just buying digital copies of the shows. So I wouldn't be a bit surprised if Apple makes out like a bandit from this, at least for the first couple of years, because it's going to be way cheaper to go drop $30 on iTunes for a season of blah, as long as they're still doing licensing for it, than it would be to pay $6 a month for however long until they come out with something new. What you're going to end up having too is people signing up for it and dropping these things very quickly. You're going to sign up for CBS's thing for Discovery, for Star Trek Discovery, and people are going to sign up, binge watch that shit, and then drop the service until they announce that there's more episodes, and then you'll just do it again. So that's where you're going to end up going. But anyway.
It's scary. It's scary to think that that's going to happen, but yeah, that's the way it's going to lean.
Change is always scary.
True.
How different is it than when cable TV first started coming out?
Right.
People, that shit was weird back then, and it took people a while to get on board because it was different.
Okay. I had a thought, but lost it. Damn it.
I'll bounce this back to the article real quick.
Okay.
If that helps. One of the things that I think makes an article like this, again, a little scary, is the fact that the people who are reacting to it, including us, we're fans of comics. we have a vested interest in not seeing comics die. And so, yeah, we don't want to hear this because you're talking about comics dying. And we're fans. And so I think we come into reading an article like this very biased. And I mean, so this is not what we want to hear because we're fans. And it makes it a little more difficult to see kind of I hesitate to use the word reality, but it makes it difficult for us to kind of see it from a different perspective. I mean, because we have our perspective already, and I mean, this is not to get too preachy, but this is where we are in the world of politics today as well. Nobody wants to hear anything that's not their own opinion anymore. And so that's why we've got this dramatic polarization in the world of politics right now, is because all everybody ever listens to is stuff that makes them feel good and feel happy, because it just spews back their own whatever weirdness is going through their own heads at any given time. And so there's no discourse, and so there's no conversation, and so there's no learning in the process. And until we somehow break that wall, stuff's just not going to make sense. And I think that in a way that's in a clearly less painful and dramatic way, that's where we get with an article like this, is we come into it with our fandom, because our fandom is a part of us. And it makes it difficult for us to see the article from the perspective of Disney. I mean, what would Disney have to say about all of this? Well, Disney is a business, and a business has to make money, or it stops being a business. Disney is clearly very good at making money, so whatever they do is going to be geared in that direction. And it's real hard for a big comics fan to see that, because they're shaded by their comics fandom, and there's a crossing of the streams in there that make people get all uptight. And that's why, I mean, ultimately on some sort of psychological level, that's why an article like this annoys us. It has nothing to do with whether it's right or wrong. It has nothing to do with whether it's opinion or fact. It's just that it rubs us the wrong way, because it doesn't tell us what we want to know. It doesn't tell us what we want to hear, which is that comics is great and comics will live forever.
I want to thank you for making that statement.
Yeah,
it's very, very true.
Yeah, and that said, the article sucks because it says comics is going to die.
Well, yeah, that too.
Well, on that note, I think we are going to take a break and come back with our weekly picks. And we are back, and it's time for our weekly picks. And for this week, I lead off. And for my first choice, I am picking Generation Gone, #2, from Image Comics, written by Ailes Cott and Andre Arruo. I'm sorry, I'm sure I butchered the name, who also did the art. The first issue really intrigued me, and I think Les had a similar feeling too. Mike, did you read the first issue?
Yeah.
It's about 3 hackers who unknowingly, as a part of a secret project, and at the end of the first issue, we realized that one of them had gained the power of flight, and we had a teaser for the cover for #2, seeing her flying. So I don't think I've mentioned it before, but at store we run a book club. It's called a #1 Club, and every week we would pick we would have a first issue of a new series, whether it's ongoing or mini, and this one was one of our choices to kind of read and discuss, and I think the general opinion of it was kind of we were all kind of interested, thought it had potential. Not sure how long of a series this is going to be, but it definitely got my interest, or piqued my interest.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I liked it. I liked it, and it was a cool and interesting take on where it was going. I kind of hate to spoil it too much by talking too much about
Right.
it, but yeah, it was somewhere between a weird sci-fi hacker thing and a supers story. Well, I'll spoil
Yeah.
it that much.
Yeah.
And it was,
That
yeah,
works.
yeah, it was different.
And to me, you're adding the government conspiracy in it, the government trying to shut down a program to begin with, and this enticed me because, where are they going to take this? Is this going to be the group battling the government, or is this going to be the starting of a group? And from the first issue, you found out one received flight, but as far as you know, the other two are dead.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's well worth the time. It's a good read.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes.
Alrighty, Mikey.
Okie dokie. My first pick is a Dynamite book, and this is called Hero Killers. This is issue 4, and it is billed as from the pages of Project Superpowers. So it's the guys who did Project Superpowers, Ryan Brown and Pete Woods. And this has been a very fun little story about a group of the kind of the sidekicks of some of the supers in the previous stories, and their adventures and some stuff that they kind of unwittingly do and then kind of go too far with it, and it's got this cool dramatic flair, and it's also got this great humorous edge to it. I am not I say this, I am not normally a huge fan of supers, but this is good. I am enjoying the crap out of this.
It has been interesting. And I've got to side with you on this.
Yeah, I've missed out on this one. I'm gonna have to go back and check it out. It definitely sounds interesting.
Yep. It's a lot of fun.
Alrighty, Les.
For my first choice, it's also a #1 club pick we had, Sisters of Sorrow, #2. This is by Boom Studios, and it is a 4-issue series, so you're getting to the halfway point. Hopefully you're picking this up, because otherwise I'm going to say, why are you not reading this? This is about abused women and them stepping up and saying, we're not going to take it anymore. In the issue 2, it looks like the sisters are going to step forward and go after more men. They have 3 targets, and they want to do this before the LAPD can find them and take them down. The first issue to me was a fun read because the attitudes of the women were so diverse, yet there was that common thought of, let's go kick ass. So hopefully you are reading it, and if you're not, go out and find issues 1 and 2.
Yeah, the first issue was it was cool.
They're dark.
It's very dark though. Yeah.
Which I don't view as
but,
a bad thing, really. But very dark.
No, considering the subject matter, I don't see how it could be anything else. But right.
Very much so.
Very true.
Alrighty, I'm up again, and for my second choice, I'm turning toward DC Comics. And as part of Jack Kirby Month, we are getting Manhunter Special #1, with stories written by Keith Giffen, Dan DiDio, and Sam Humphries, art by Mark Buckingham and Steve Rude. Manhunter is a character. It's a name that's been used for several different characters. I had forgotten that one of them was actually created by Jack Kirby. But one of the things about this month, especially with DC's doing these specials, it's presenting characters that you may have forgotten or never knew existed, and that were created by Jack Kirby. And there's actually a backup tale features Etrigan the Demon, and then there's 2 or 3 reprinted stories that were written and drawn by, or at least art by Jack Kirby. I'm not sure if they were written by him, but at least he provided the art. I've been enjoying these specials. There's been 2 or 3 of them already come out, and so I'm grateful that DC did this.
Cool.
I'm enjoying them too. It's good that they are issuing these and falling back toward the Kirby era. And I enjoy seeing where they're going with them.
Alrighty, Mike.
Okie dokie. My second pick is an IDW book, and it is called Saucer State. This is issue 3. This is by Paul Cornell and Ryan Kelly. This is actually a sequel to Saucer Country, which came out a year or 2 ago. And in this particular arc, the woman who was allegedly abducted by aliens in Saucer Country has now become president. And at the end of issue 2, I don't want to go too far into this. I kind of don't want to. I would love to not spoil this at all and just say go read it, but I got to give people a reason to do that, right? At the end of issue 2, she finds out that they are getting actual signals from aliens, and that the aliens are on their way. And so obviously issue 3 now is going to be reaction time. And so this is that she's president and has this experience with aliens. It certainly adds a level of drama that you wouldn't normally have in a story like this. So it's been really fun. It's really well written, and the art's nice too.
The Saucer story previously was fun to read, so it'll be fun. It'll be, to me, well, again, it'll be fun to find out what they do with this.
Yep.
Cool. Alrighty, Les.
My second choice comes from Image Comics, written by Doug Wagner, illustrated by Charlie Kirchhoff and Nick Rummel. It's called The Hard Place. It's a 5-issue series. This is number 1. And this, too, is a crime novel. You have a wheelman in Detroit who has served 5 years in prison, and he decides he's not going to go back. He returns home to work in his father's garage. One day, when he's doing a visit to the bank, A.J. Gurney, the lead, is recognized by two bank robbers. So now the bank robbers come and say, AJ, you're going to be the getaway driver. They want to make sure that AJ complies, so they take a hostage, a young female. Trouble is, she is the daughter of a Russian crime lord. So now AJ, as the driver, is being chased by the police department and the Russian mob. So, like they say in the write-up, without a doubt, he's in a very hard place.
Yep, I saw this and I thought of you, Les.
And I appreciate that, because I'm looking forward to this one.
Yep. It's bound to be exciting given all that's going on there.
And it's funny, and I need to reach out to them and inquire. But it's an Image book, but I've noticed that 12 gauge has been touting it, and it has been touting plastic too. So I'm wondering if there's some kind of agreement where it's their stories that Image is putting out, or I've not seen anything where Image bought out 12 gauge and made it like an imprint, but like, you know, kind of like how Skybound is part of Image as well. But it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, if it is, then that's awesome. I mean, that would make sense why. Oh God, I'm blanking on the miniseries that came out earlier, just a few months ago. It was one of them that Mikey and I checked out for 12 gauge a year or so earlier. It was like Southern. Anyway, but yeah, this sounds pretty cool.
Not Southern Bastards, is it?
No.
Okay.
It wasn't Southern Bastards, Southern Cross. I would have to actually look into it, but
yeah, I know what you're talking about. I can't remember which book it was though.
Because it kind of surprised me when Image started putting them out. I was like, that's already been out before, because we reviewed it. But hey, I would be happy if that's the case. Then
yeah, good for them, for sure.
Yeah, and maybe we might see a little bit more ICE, Immigration and Custom Enforcement. Those were pretty good. Those were pretty good stories too. I'd like to see more of those. Alrighty, who's up next? Is that Mikey or is it me?
It's you.
Me.
We're
Okay.
on to,
we're on our honorables now.
honorable
That's right.
mentions.
Yes. Okay. For my honorable mention, I'm going back to DC Comics, and it's a collection. It's the third volume of Legends of the Dark Knight, Jim Aparo, with stories written by Bob Haney, Mike Barr, Gary Conway, Gary Burkett, Alan Burnett, and Robert Kanigher. I'm sure I mispronounced that name. But these are all stories that features the art from Jim Aparo, who Batman's had so many great artists, but it's Aparo's version that I kind of think of when I kind of picture him, the whole square jaw and all that. And this actually collects stories from Ravenbold, Detective, Batman Family, and also the miniseries Untold Legend of Batman, which I think it's only been reprinted one other time because it was written by Gary Conway, and that was part of his collection. So, which I would love to read those stories again. So, be a fun pickup. I miss Aparo's art. Unfortunately, he is no longer with us.
He did have a distinctive style, especially with Batman.
It was a superhero look. I mean, even when you saw him as Bruce Wayne, I mean, he's, you know, he was like the good guy.
Yes.
Alrighty, Mike, you're up.
I'm up. My honorable mention is a Dark Horse book. And I am pretty sure I recommended this at least twice before. But if you're not reading Department H, you should, because, and definitely you want to go back to the beginning. This is issue 17 coming out this week. So it's actually a bit of a leap to go back to the beginning. But this is it's a very layered story, and there's a lot of dramatic stuff going on in this story, and that's on top of the fact that it's basically a group of people trying to escape from an underwater observatory 6 miles below the surface of the ocean that is just literally falling apart on them. They're trying like hell to get out of this place, and there's a lot of other stuff going on, and it's just a very cool story. It's very much what we've come to expect from Matt Kent when he's doing his solo stuff. And I mean that in the best possible way.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, all those other stories have been collected. So, I mean, if this book, kind of piques your interest, the collections are available. Mm-hmm. That'll get you caught up pretty quick.
Yep.
And it's definitely worth picking up and going forward.
Mm-hmm. And Les, before you chime in with your honorable mention, the title I was looking for was Loose Ends, a Southern crime romance.
Oh, yes, the one that I read last time.
Last week, yeah. Les mentioned that last week. I totally forgot that was the one. I knew it
sounded
familiar.
That was originally published from 12 Gauge. So
cool.
Yeah.
I just kept blanking on the name. So, alrighty, Les.
All right, to get serious here, American Mythology is bringing out a new comic book written by S.A. Check, illustrated by Scotty Watson. Volcanosaurus #1 is hitting the stands. I don't know that I can really tell you much of anything about it. It's just that you have a dinosaur that comes out of a volcano. So it's self-explanatory. That's it.
Yeah, what the hell else?
Pretty much.
I mean, come on.
Right.
I know they're going to take a serious tone with this, but just the name of it cracks me up.
I was about to say, you think they're going to take it serious. We'll just have to buy the book and find out.
Yep. I agree.
Cool. Yep. Any special mentions this week?
I always feel like you put me on the spot when you ask this, but no. I don't think I have one. Nothing springs to mind. Except whatever you mention, I'll be like, oh yeah, I should have thought of that.
I wasn't planning on mentioning anything this week, so.
I do have one.
Oh, cool.
Wow, okay.
A hardcover. No, I'm sorry, but it's an all ages. It's called Gregory and the Gargoyles. This is volume 1 of the 3-volume set. So I've got a feeling it's going to be just a good fantasy read. It's put out by Humanoids Publishing. It is a hardback, but it looks like it's going to have fun and mystical tales, things like that.
Cool.
Cool.
It's a bit of a change from some of the stuff you've mentioned this evening, but cool.
It'll take your mind off the Volcanosaurus.
All right, so question of the week then?
Question of the week.
Mm-hmm.
What do you foresee? Or let's do this. What do you when do you think the end of the comics will come? How long do you think
Okay.
it'll take? 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 27 minutes, whatever. Give us your best shot. Give us your best guess for the rest of the life of comics as we know them.
Alrighty. Any special shout outs?
Nope, don't think so.
Okay. Alright, we'll just go to our regular shout outs. First off, want to thank Manny the Martyr for the music we use for our podcast. You guys should check them out. We'll have a link in our show notes, and if you also go to the website www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net and click on our podcast page, you will see their logo. Go check them out. Thank you, guys. Second, want to thank the fine folks of Potter and Family for spreading the word of the Fellowship, retweeting our links to our podcast. We've been returning that love as best as we can. I know Mikey does a little bit better job than me, but I've been trying to work on it. I've been trying to do better. I'm trying to do better. But we thank them for their support. If you're looking for there's a podcast, anything that you're looking for, just go to Twitter and do a search, hashtag Potter and Family as one word, and just go nuts. Check them out. You never know. You never know what you might find. And finally, you, dear listener, thank you for downloading and listening to this episode. We appreciate you downloading and checking out our other episodes. We're always open to hear your feedback. Any kind of questions, comments, complaints, concerns, anything. Send it our way, and we will definitely take it under advisement. There are several ways you can contact us. First of all, you can contact us through the website. You click on our About Us tab, and there's a form you can fill out there. You can also send us an email at email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and we'll respond to you as soon as we can. You can follow us through our social media. We are on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks. And obviously we are on Twitter @Fellowship Geeks. Feel free to follow us there and shout out to us if you'd like. And we'll respond in kind. Mikey has his own personal Twitter account @MikeyGeek. Feel free to follow him and say hello. I have one as well @TomTCGeek. Feel free to follow me and just send warmest greetings, and I'll return in kind. And wherever you download our episode, whether it's through iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or YouTube, it would be awesome if you would rate us, whatever system they use, whether it's thumbs up, thumbs down, stars, whatever. That would be awesome. And if you have an extra couple of minutes, a review would be awesome as well. Did I miss anything?
Nope. I think you nailed it.
Alrighty. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
Just thanks, everybody.
That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. We do appreciate it. Y'all take care. We'll see you we'll talk to you next time. And until then, read more comics and support your local stores. We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at the Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,